The courtroom fell silent as Judge Frank Caprio raised his eyes from the case file before him. Across the bench sat Ava Santo, 20 years old, her posture relaxed to the point of dismissiveness. When he asked if she understood the charges, her response came wrapped in a laugh, sharp, performative, loud enough to echo off the wood-paneled walls. "This is a joke, right?" she said, leaning back in her chair, as though the question itself was beneath her. Caprio's voice remained level, almost gentle. "Miss Santo, you're addressing the court. That means you answer when asked and you listen when corrected. Let's try again. Do you understand the charges?" She tossed her hair back. "I understand my father is Senator Leon Santo, and this is a waste of everyone's time." "Names don't enter verdicts," Caprio replied calmly. "Conduct does." The air in the courtroom tightened. Ava's smile thinned, but didn't disappear. Her attorney, Mark Ellery, shifted forward slightly, ready to intervene, but Caprio didn't look away from the young woman before him. "Officer Dantas, please confirm we have the body cam audio cued," the judge said. "We'll need it shortly." "Yes, Your Honor." "Good." Caprio tapped his pen twice on the bench and nodded to the clerk. "Docket 247788, Commonwealth versus Ava Marie Santo." The clerk read the charges in a clear, measured voice. Excessive speed in a residential zone, unauthorized use of an accessible parking space, and failure to comply with a lawful order. The citation had been issued by Officer Jenna Hale on Monday morning at 9:47 a.m. Caprio leaned forward, his fingers steepled. "Miss Santo, I want clarity before we proceed. Did you receive a copy of the citation at the time of the stop?" "I did." "And did you read it?" "I skimmed it." "That's not the same." Caprio turned to her attorney. "Mr. Ellery, is your client prepared to address these charges today?" Ellery stood smoothly, his suit crisp, his demeanor practiced. "Your Honor, Miss Santo is here to resolve this matter efficiently. We'd like to pay the fines and close the case this morning." "This court is not a payment portal, counselor. Sit down." Ellery hesitated, then lowered himself back into his chair. Caprio flipped through the file, his expression thoughtful. "There's a notation here. Prior administrative warning linked to a campus parking incident last spring. Not criminal, but context." He looked up at Ava. "Miss Santo, did you complete any corrective steps after that warning?" Ava blinked, her annoyance visible. "That was nothing. I moved my car." "After how long?" "I don't remember. The note says 3 hours. The complaint was filed by a student using a wheelchair who couldn't access the building entrance." Caprio set the page down deliberately. "That's not prejudicial. It's pattern." Ellery tried again, his voice taking on a pleading edge. "Your Honor, my client acknowledges a lapse in judgment. She's willing to pay the fines today and move forward." "Mr. Ellery, paying a fine is not moving forward. It's closing a tab. I want to understand what happened." Caprio fixed Ava with a steady gaze. "Miss Santo, walk me through Monday morning." Ava exhaled audibly, her annoyance palpable. "I was running late. I parked in a spot near the pharmacy. I was inside maybe 10 minutes. When I came out, there was a ticket on my windshield and a tow truck hooking up my car." "You parked in an accessible space." "It was the only spot open." "That's not what I asked. You parked in a space marked with the international symbol of access, correct?" "Yes, but no one was using it." Caprio's voice didn't rise, but it hardened. "Miss Santo, harm isn't just injury. It's denial. Someone needed that space, and you decided your 10 minutes mattered more." "No one was injured." The judge reached for another document. "Let me read you one line from a written statement submitted by Laura Bennett, a parent who arrived at that pharmacy at 9:52 a.m. He cleared his throat. The ramp could not lower because a sedan blocked the van accessible zone. "My daughter missed her therapy window." Ava waved a dismissive hand. "I didn't see anyone," Ellery objected immediately. "Your Honor, we're straying into emotional language that isn't relevant to the citation itself." "Counselor, the right of access is the legal core here. Convenience doesn't trump it, ever." Caprio turned to the officer standing near the side door. "Officer Hale, please read your narrative into the record." Officer Jenna Hale stepped forward, her bearing calm and professional. She recounted observing a black sedan traveling at an estimated 48 mph in a posted 25 mph residential zone. After initiating a traffic stop, the driver, Ava Santo, had not pulled over immediately, continuing for 2 blocks before stopping in front of the pharmacy. The vehicle was parked in a van-accessible space with appropriate signage and pavement markings. When Hale approached and requested registration, Miss Santo had refused to provide it. Caprio looked at Ava. "Did you refuse to provide your registration?" "I was looking for it," Officer Hale continued, without prompting. "I asked 3 times over approximately 4 minutes. Miss Santo told me to relax." "Let's hear it," Caprio said. "Officer Dantas, play the body cam audio. Just the relevant exchange." A brief static hiss filled the courtroom. Then Ava's voice came through, clipped and irritated. "Relax. Do you know who my dad is?" Caprio paused the recording. "Officer Hale, did you hear that statement at the time?" "Yes, Your Honor." Ava leaned forward quickly. "That was sarcasm. I was frustrated." "Sarcasm doesn't move vans, Miss Santo." Caprio turned to his clerk. "Miss Reyes, were there any contacts to this court or the department regarding this case prior to today's hearing?" The clerk flipped through a log, her finger tracing down the entries. "Yes, Your Honor. 3 incoming calls within 1 hour of the citation timestamp. 2 from a number registered to the office of Senator Leon Santo. 1 voicemail left at 10:51 a.m. Play the voicemail." A man's voice filled the courtroom, smooth, controlled, the tone of someone accustomed to doors opening at his arrival. "This is calling on behalf of Senator Santo's office. We'd like to discuss case 24-7788 and explore options for a quiet resolution. Please return this call at your earliest convenience." Larry was on his feet immediately. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. My client is not responsible for calls made by third parties." "Overruled. Relevance. Pressures on process. I'm not accusing anyone of wrongdoing. I'm putting facts on the record. That's transparency, not prejudice." Ava shifted in her seat, her earlier confidence visibly cracking. "I didn't ask anyone to call." "Maybe not," Caprio said quietly. "But someone thought it would help." The judge looked at the clerk again. "Is Miss Laura Bennett available to give a brief statement?" "She is, Your Honor, by phone." "Put her through." A woman's voice, steady but strained, filled the small speaker. "Thank you, Your Honor. I'll be brief. My daughter has cerebral palsy. She receives physical therapy twice a week. Monday was a critical session. Her therapist was introducing new mobility supports. We arrived at 9:52. The van accessible space was blocked. I couldn't lower the ramp. By the time we found another spot and got inside, we'd missed the first 20 minutes. The therapist had to reschedule. Missing 1 session can set progress back a week." Ava muttered something under her breath. Caprio caught it. "Miss Santo, if you have something to say it clearly." "I said I offered to cover any costs." "Time isn't invoiceable," Caprio replied. Laura Bennett continued, her voice gaining strength. "I don't want money. I want people to understand that accessible spaces aren't luxuries. They're infrastructure. My daughter can't just find another spot." "Thank you, Miss Bennett. We'll address this fully in the ruling." The line clicked off. Caprio picked up another document. "Miss Reyes, this is a text message screenshot submitted by the prosecution. Can you read it?" The clerk nodded. "From Ava Santo to an unnamed contact. Timestamp 10:30 a.m. Monday. Got a ticket. Dad said he'll make calls. Don't sweat it. Ava's face hardened. That was private. It was discoverable. Caprio leaned back. Miss Santo, let me lay out a timeline. Citation issued at 9:47 a.m. Calls from your father's office begin at 10:38 a.m. Your text is sent at 10:30 a.m. Someone moved quickly. I didn't ask him to. But you expected it. There's a difference between being helped and being shielded. Influence attempts do not rewrite events. Ellery stood again, slower this time. Your Honor, I'd like to request that the remainder of this hearing be handled in chambers. Media attention on this matter could create unfair bias. Mr. Ellery, the remedy for spin is sunlight. We're staying on the record. Caprio fixed Ava with a calm, unyielding stare. I'm going to ask you 3 yes or no questions. Were you driving 48 Manipulapan in a 25 mph zone? Yes. Did you park in a van accessible space without authorization? Yes. Did you refuse to provide your registration when asked by Officer Hale? Ava hesitated. I was trying to find it. That's not a no. The record shows refusal. Your Honor, this feels targeted. Ava's voice cracked slightly, the bravado finally thinning. People make mistakes every day and don't end up in here. You're not targeted, Miss Santo. You're noticed. There's a difference. Most people don't have a prior warning. Most people don't invoke a senator's name during a traffic stop. Most people don't have their family office call the court an hour later. Privilege is a volume knob that drowns out feedback. Ellery shifted uncomfortably. Your Honor, Miss Santo is a college student with no criminal record. A single lapse shouldn't define her future. I agree. That's why I'm not treating this as a character verdict. I'm treating it as a learning gap. The prior administrative warning was a whisper. This citation is a sentence. If we don't speak clearly now, the next consequence will be someone else's tragedy. Caprio let the silence hold. 5 seconds. 7, 10, 12. No one moved. No one spoke. Ava stared at the table in front of her. Ellery's pen hovered over his notepad. Officer Hale stood still near the wall. Then Caprio spoke quietly. Accountability gets quiet so truth can be heard. Here's my finding. The evidence supports all 3 charges. Officer Hale's account is credible, corroborated by body cam audio and the towing log. Miss Santo's speed endangered residents in a zone with marked school crossings. Her unauthorized use of a van, accessible space denied critical access to a family with mobility needs. Her refusal to comply with a lawful order delayed the stop and escalated the situation unnecessarily. Caprio paused, then continued. This court does not weigh cases based on titles, connections, or influence. Conduct is the only currency here. Miss Santo, your father's office does not get to call in favors. Your status does not erase harm. The law is not a velvet rope. He flipped another page. I also note the prior administrative warning. That warning was not punitive. It was instructional. You were told once that accessible spaces matter. You chose not to internalize that lesson. Privilege hid the consequences. Now, they're visible. Consequences teach what privilege hid. Caprio read the financial penalties. Speeding $200, unauthorized use of accessible space. $250, failure to comply $30, towing and storage fees $210, total $690. Ava exhaled sharply. Ellery began to object, then stopped. Caprio held up a hand. I'm not finished. I'm staying a portion of that total, $340, contingent on your completion of a restorative accountability plan. If you complete it fully and on time, that portion is remitted. If you don't, it's reinstated and you pay the full amount. The judge outlined 5 requirements. First, a written apology to Laura Bennett and her daughter. Not a form letter or PR statement, but a real apology that named what she took from them and what she learned. She would deliver it in person if Miss Bennett agreed to meet her. Second, 1 full week of volunteer service at a pediatric mobility program. Hands-on work, equipment setup, therapy space prep, family support. No photo ops, no social media campaigns. Third, a 60-second public service announcement on accessible parking. The script would be vetted by the court. No branding, no grandstanding, no mentions of her family. Just facts and accountability. Fourth, completion of a youth driver reflection course covering the impact of speed, the function of accessible infrastructure, and the ethics of compliance. Fifth, a 600-word written reflection on what she learned through the process. Not fluff, not slogans, truth. Mercy is not a coupon, Caprio said. It's a contract with your future. Additionally, Caprio made several recommendations, on the record, to Municipal Court Administration, the Traffic Division, and the Senator's Office. Establish an ex parte contact log for all cases. Any off-record communication attempts would be documented and published weekly. Implement a mandatory recusal or supervisor co-sign protocol. If any staff member was approached by an elected official regarding a case, they must either recuse themselves or obtain a supervisor's co-signature. Develop an accessible space enforcement escalation guide. Violations in van-accessible zones should trigger immediate tow priority. Launch a court clerk hotline for interference reporting. Any attempt to influence a case through intimidation, connection, or coercion could be reported anonymously. Distribute a youth driver education module through high schools and colleges, covering the real-world impact of traffic violations, especially those involving accessible infrastructure. The courtroom door opened. A man in a dark suit entered. Late 50s, silver hair, the practiced posture of someone used to rooms rearranging themselves around him. Your Honor, I'm Senator Ava Santo. I'd like a moment to discuss my daughter's case. Caprio didn't stand. Senator, this is an active hearing. You're welcome to observe, but I won't discuss the case with you outside the record. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking to resolve this quietly for everyone's benefit. Senator, quiet resolutions are how patterns continue. This case is being handled on the record in open court. Like every other case. Ava interrupted, her voice smaller than before. Dad, stop. I want to respond. Not you, me. Senator Santo turned toward her, surprised. Caprio's gaze sharpened. This is not your trial to manage, Senator. Your daughter has counsel. She has a voice. Let her use it. The senator hesitated, then nodded and stepped back. Over the next 7 days, Ava completed the plan piece by piece. Day 1, she drafted the apology. The court rejected it, too vague. She tried again, better. Day 3, Laura Bennett agreed to meet her at the Pediatric Mobility Center. The conversation was short, uncomfortable, and necessary. Ava listened more than she spoke. Days 4 through 6, she assisted with mobility equipment setup, learned how therapy schedules were calibrated, and watched a 6-year-old work for 40 minutes to move her wheelchair 3 feet forward. One of the therapists told her, "Access isn't a favor, it's the floor." Day 7, she recorded the PSA. The first draft was too polished, too performative. The court sent it back. She recorded it again, plainly. No music, no editing tricks, just her voice and the truth. The driver reflection course took another 3 days. She completed it without complaint. 2 weeks after the initial hearing, Ava returned to court. This time, she was alone. No counsel, no father, no entourage. Caprio reviewed the submitted documents, the apology, the volunteer log, the PSA recording, the course certificate, the written reflection. Miss Santo, I've read your reflection. I want to hear you summarize it in your own words. No script. Ava stood. I thought accessible parking was just about proximity. I didn't understand that the spaces are designed with specific dimensions for ramps, doors, and equipment. I didn't know that van-accessible spaces are even more critical because side entry ramps need extra clearance. I didn't think about what happens when someone can't access a building. It's not just inconvenient. It's isolating. She paused. I also didn't realize how much I relied on my family's name to smooth things over. I've spent my whole life assuming someone would fix problems for me. That's not accountability. That's avoidance. What did you learn from Miss Bennett? That time is infrastructure too. You can't make up a missed therapy session. Progress is incremental, and interruptions have consequences that compound. I took something I can't give back. Caprio nodded. You stopped borrowing power and started earning character. He signed a form. I'm remitting $240 of the stayed portion. You still owe $450 total. That's not punishment. It's a reminder. You'll pay it in installments over 6 months. The court will monitor compliance. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me. Thank the people who taught you what I couldn't. 3 months later, the policies took root. The ex parte contact log was published weekly on the municipal court website. Officers received training on the recusal protocol. 2 cases were flagged in the first month. Both were reassigned without incident. The Accessible Space Enforcement Guide was adopted citywide. Tow response times for van-accessible violations dropped by 40%. Complaints of interference were logged through the new clerk hotline. 4 reports led to formal reviews. Ava's PSA was distributed to 17 high schools and played during driver education courses. It wasn't viral. It wasn't celebrated, but it was seen, and that was enough. One parent emailed the court. My son watched that video and asked me why people block ramps. We had a real conversation. Thank you. On a quiet Friday afternoon, Caprio finished his last case of the week. Before leaving, he wrote a single principle on a note card and pinned it to the bulletin board behind his bench. Titles expire. Habits remain. Choose the ones you can live with. He thought of Ava Santo, of Laura Bennett's daughter, of every case where power tried to whisper louder than truth. One sentence stayed with him. Something he told Ava during her final appearance. Power that doesn't listen becomes cruelty. He turned off the light and locked the door. Dramatization for storytelling and education. Not legal advice or reporting.